One was a young noblewoman, the other a slave. One held her infant in her arms, the other gave birth in chains. Together they faced the arena, beasts and swords, because they would not deny Christ. Their names were Perpetua and Felicity. Their story has echoed for nearly 2,000 years as a testimony of faith stronger than fear, love stronger than death, and hope stronger than Rome's might. Who were Perpetua and Felicity? Perpetua was a 22-year-old woman from Carthage, North Africa, around AD 203. She came from a noble family, educated and respected. She was also a young mother, nursing her infant son. Felicity was her slave, pregnant when arrested, faithful in her newfound Christian faith. They were catechumens, new believers being instructed for baptism. But before their journey of discipleship was complete, persecution fell. The Roman context. At this time, Septimius Severus was emperor. While not as systematically brutal as Nero or Domitian, he issued edicts forbidding conversion to Christianity or Judaism. For Rome, Christianity was dangerous because it refused the gods of the empire and undermined the unity of emperor worship. To the Roman law, Perpetua and Felicity were criminals, traitors against Rome's religious order. But to the grace of God, they were daughters of the king, witnesses of the truth, sealed for eternal glory. Arrest and imprisonment. Perpetua, Felicity and several companions were arrested. In prison, Perpetua recorded much of her own experience, one of the rare first-hand testimonies of martyrdom we possess. Her father, desperate to save her, came to plead, "Have pity on your father, on your son, deny your faith for their sake." But Perpetua replied, pointing to a small pitcher, "Can it be called anything other than what it is? So too I cannot be called anything other than what I am, a Christian." Even her father's tears could not move her. Her loyalty to Christ was firm. Felicity's trial and birth. Felicity faced her own trial. She was 8 months pregnant in prison, and Roman law forbade the execution of pregnant women. She feared she would be spared death while her companions faced the beasts. She prayed, and days before the arena, she gave birth to a daughter in chains. She entrusted the child to another Christian woman. Then, free of her pregnancy, she joined her brothers and sisters in martyrdom. Her joy was not in escape, but in sharing Christ's sufferings with her companions. The arena and vision of victory. Perpetua recorded visions given to her in prison, a golden ladder reaching to heaven, guarded by a dragon at the base, but climbed by the faithful into God's presence. She saw herself transformed, prepared to face the beasts not in fear but in triumph. On the day of execution they entered the arena singing psalms. The men faced wild beasts. The women were set upon by a wild cow, thrown and wounded, but they rose again. Finally swords were drawn. Perpetua guided the trembling hand of the young gladiator to her throat. It was said she could not be slain unless she gave her consent, for her death was not defeat but victory in Christ. Law and grace. Law. Rome demanded loyalty to its gods, condemning them to die as criminals. Felicity's childbirth in prison was treated as legal inconvenience. Grace. Christ counted them faithful. Grace turned a prison into a pulpit, a birth into a testimony, an arena into an altar. Their blood became seed for the church in Africa and beyond. The legacy. Their story, preserved by the church in Carthage, became one of the most cherished accounts of martyrdom in early Christianity. Perpetua showed that faithfulness was not limited by age, gender, or social status. Felicity showed that slavery and suffering could not silence devotion. Together, they embodied the truth Paul wrote. "There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." Gal 3:28. Their courage inspired generations of believers across Africa, Europe, and beyond, fueling the missionary zeal of the early church. Devotional Reflection. What do Perpetua and Felicity teach us? They teach us that Christ is worth more than comfort, family, or even life. They teach us that faith can thrive in chains, in prison, and in pain. They teach us that women, noble and slave alike, can bear witness with courage that humbles emperors and silences crowds. Their story asks us, do you cling to Christ above all? Would you stand firm when everything else is stripped away? Perpetua and Felicity walked into the arena singing, because they knew whom they belonged to. Their story calls us to the same courage. to confess Christ boldly, to hold nothing back, to live, and if necessary to die, for his name. Pray today, Lord, give me the courage of Perpetua and Felicity. Teach me to value Christ above comfort, to see trials as triumphs, and to live as a witness of your grace. And remember, the same Christ who strengthened a noblewoman and a slave in Carthage's arena lives in you today. Be faithful, be bold, be ready, for the crown of life awaits those who endure.